The problem with adding ice to it is it continually gets more and more diluted.
Well, that's why you just drink really fast, and you just
pound it.
You just get slammed
like right away.
Dude, I get so drunk when I drink bourbon on ice because it goes down way too easy.
If I'm going to get hammered, though, I want to taste what I was getting hammered on.
Welcome back to Whiskey Uncut.
Oh, you almost did it.
Wanted to subject my co-host, the Doctor of Whiskey, the Bourbon bro.
I am.
James.
I'm excited, too, because today's topic that you selected is a little bit nerdy. It's a little bit sciencey.
You just rolled your eyes when I told you that I wanted to do an episode about whiskey on ice.
I did, yeah. And it's not because I don't think it's a legitimate way to drink it. I just don't want to encourage people to do it.
Here's the thing. When you say whiskey on ice, it makes it sound like a musical or like a Disney show.
It does a little bit, yeah. It sounds way too much like Disney on Ice.
I see this constantly on Facebook groups. People asking, what is the right way to drink whiskey? Or they'll post a picture of them drinking whiskey on ice, and then half the people in the comments are like, how dare you put that on ice? You know, that's heresy, all this stuff. I strongly disagree that it's heresy to put whiskey on ice. Now, that being said, I have always kind of stood by the fact that I don't think you should put really high-end whiskey on ice because, in my opinion, it kind of diminishes a little bit of the nuance in the flavors. And so that's usually what you're paying for with a more expensive bottle, is that nuance and complexity. And so for me personally, I've always kind of had a cutoff of like where, all right, I'm not going to drink that on ice or not, but it's not a fundamental like ice makes it an inferior experience. It's just ice isn't appropriate for what you're paying for with more expensive whiskey.
Well, let's start and talk a little bit about what ice does to whiskey. When people get really critical of how other people are drinking their whiskey. But my first comment to everybody is, well, what do you want the ice to do to your whiskey? Like, why do you feel like you need to add ice to it? Because in my opinion, ice is going to do two major things. It's obviously going to dilute it.
Yes.
So over time, the ice is going to melt. It's going to dilute the whiskey down. You could accomplish that by just adding drops of water. If your goal is to dilute it, I don't think that ice makes sense in that instance. Now, the other thing that ice does, and you know, this is an entirely a personal preference, and I think where you are at on your whiskey journey, ice, just like any cold, will mute the flavor of the whiskey a little bit.
Yes.
So it brings back the bite of the proof a little bit, and it brings back sort of the richness of the whiskey and mutes the flavor overall. So if you're still in a stage where you feel like a lot of whiskey is overwhelming to you on your palate, you just can't taste anything, it just tastes like alcohol, adding ice to it does help. My counter to that is I think you can do that without adding water and without diluting it. You can chill your glass. You can go get whiskey stones, which at least chill it a little bit, right? So then you get a little bit of coolness without having the dilution factor.
So first off, I want to lay out the whiskeys that we've selected for this tasting and why I selected them. So I brought in Four Roses, and this used to be called Yellow Label. I think they just call it Four Roses now. And this is 80 proof. So to me, I would never consider adding water to an 80 proof whiskey.
No, it's really not going to do too much.
Because it's already been significantly watered down, and it's already going to, if you're used to drinking whiskey at all, it's probably already going to taste watery. Now, if you're just starting to drink whiskey, that may not be the case. But the thing is, this is a pretty affordable bourbon. This is the big bottle, but a regular bottle used to go for like $15 or $16. So at that point, and I always thought it was just a touch harsh. And that's one of the things that putting your whiskey on ice can help alleviate, because you're chilling it. You're taking away a little bit of that bite. On a less premium bourbon, it may help it go down a little bit smoother. Smooth.
And just for reference, this is one of those bottles. If you go into a lot of bars, a lot of time their well bourbon, the bourbon that they're putting in, as a base for most of their cocktails, is going to be Four Roses Yellow Label or something along those lines.
That's
so
what they use at Spurrier's for old fashions and stuff.
It's similar in quality to what your well bourbons are going to be.
Yep. So then to match up against it, we brought the Four Roses Small Batch Select, which is their newest release to their standard lineup. It's 104 proof, 52% ABV, and it is it's, I believe, just supposed to be a selection of 6 of their mash bills, whereas I think the regular one is a blend of like all of them. So it's a reduced number of Four Roses mash bills, and it's also higher proof, supposedly maybe some better barrels, but it costs like $50 a bottle.
I think there's some older stock in there, so we're also there's a significant age difference probably in the average age of the blend.
Yep. So we're a little over 2 times the price. So we're going to taste these neat side by side first and see how we feel, how they compare, and then we'll put them both on ice and see if that changes our opinion of which one we would buy and whether or not we think it's even worth putting the more premium bourbon on ice. Right away, when I taste the standard Four Roses neat, I like the aroma on it quite a bit. It's nice. It's floral, which is kind of a Four Roses hallmark. It's got, a little bit of the barrely notes going on. It doesn't taste super, super young, but it's also not a mature whiskey. Now on the palate, I get a little bit of sweetness, but then it kind of gets bitter and harsh pretty quickly. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, there's that dusty note that you sometimes get in bourbon. It's really prominent on the finish, and I think that's that harsh aspect that you get from it. It's funny because
it almost goes flat.
Right. It's very sweet up front. Like you get a lot of sweetness up front, and like honey and like you said, floral notes. But then it just sort of flattens out and you get this little funk at the end that adds a little bit of harsh to it, which is funny because at an 80 proof whiskey, you very rarely talk about it being harsh.
But, this is one to me that I think is drinkable neat, but it's not a particularly enjoyable experience. I mean, it doesn't burn your throat or anything the way some other maybe $17, $18 bourbons might, even at 80 proof, but it's a little meh.
This is a bottle where if you want to make cocktails at home, I think this is a solid bottle to use. It's going to bring some flavor. It's got enough body to it that it's going to hold up to what you put into it. But if you have a bunch of friends that come over that like to drink through your cabinet and they don't care what they're drinking, and this happens a lot. Like I've had people come over and they're like, they go to my bar and they start pouring stuff in. They'll pour a little bit of like Saz 18 and pour some like freaking ginger ale on it and piss me off. Like if you have folks like that come over to your house, this is a good bottle to have out because you won't care what they do with it.
Right.
They can drink it neat. They can drink it on ice. They can drink it with, in a cocktail. They can add Red Bull to it if they want. It's all going to be fine and it won't bother you. So it's a very versatile bottle, which is obviously, I think, why they have it on the well a lot of times at bars. But it's not interesting. There's nothing about the bourbon that's interesting.
No. Now, stepping up to the small batch select, now we're going up to 104 proof and we're doubling in price.
Oh, I think it's easily worth double the price.
You think it is?
I do, yeah. I wouldn't go much beyond. Like if I paid $60 for it, I'd be pretty happy. If I paid above that, I wouldn't like it. The reason I like this one is it's noticeably spicier.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, there's much more of a spicy backbone to it, which my guess is they're blending in some of those high rye mash bills.
Yeah, I get more of the OBSV, OBSK kind of mash bills from this.
Yeah, and so that jumps out, and you know me. I like spicy, I like rye. I think it's much more layered, it's much more complex. It's still not a bottle that I'm going to like go back to all the time. But I think it's noticeably 2 or 3 tiers above the yellow label.
It is directly compared to the regular label. It is much richer and it's got more complexity to it and certainly more spice. So they are definitely adding more of the high rye mash bills from Four Roses. Now,
and on the nose, they're just entirely different experiences. I mean, the yellow label's kind of flat and dusty. You just get a lot more variety and multiple layers out of the nose of the the small batch select. And it's funny because I'm not really a huge fan of this product. I rushed out and got one like when it first came out because I was like, oh, I really want to try this.
Same.
I bought one in Georgia because it landed in Georgia before it landed in Florida. And I got home and I rushed and I opened it up and I was like, like it's all right. It tastes like Four Roses. But compare, like when you put it side by side, it is a much, much better bottle than their standard release. Oh, now we go into ice?
Yep, now we're going to ice.
Oh, boy.
So I'm going to pour a little bit of the standard on ice and compare it to how it is neat. And first of all, I want to shout out Gainesville Ice Doctor for providing us this ice. Not a sponsor of the podcast. He should be, but I paid for this ice with my own money.
Call out. I like it.
Now, that being said, I must, in defense of his product, say that this ice, although it is crystal clear, is not perfectly square because I bought this a while ago and it has since been in my freezer. And every time you open and close the freezer and it like thaws slightly, it melts and eventually it freezes into one big block instead of a bunch of separate cubes. And so I had to chip this off.
It looks like you hacked it off of a glacier or something. Like
but
it works. It's clear.
When you buy it from him, it's perfectly square.
He does really good work.
They're incredible.
And I would like to say that that's how fancy that this podcast has gotten. Like we don't even use like peasant ice anymore.
No.
We only use the best ice available for Whiskey Uncut.
Yep. So
the first thing you notice when you do this.
Also, here's a nice thing. You get to do a little
cheers.
Yeah,
that's true. You can cheers on these. So the first thing you notice is, when you pour the whiskey, it stratifies pretty quickly, right? You get whiskey up at the top. You get a little bit of water coming off the ice at the bottom because you immediately start to melt the ice as you pour the whiskey over top of it. So it dilutes really, really quickly.
That is significantly better than it is neat.
It tastes like bourbon flavored water. How would you say that's significantly better?
Because that bitter aftertaste, that dusty aftertaste,
all the taste goes away. Yeah, the bitter aftertaste goes away, but so does all the other good stuff. It just tastes like whiskey flavored water. Like if Hint made a whiskey flavored water, this is what it would taste like.
Or LaCroix.
Yeah, like this is what it would taste like. So basically what you're saying is that it's garbage. So if you water it down completely and take away all the flavor, it's drinkable.
I don't think it takes away all the flavor.
It takes away everything. There's nothing here.
What do you think, Tyler? Did you plug in your mic? No, you didn't plug in your mic.
Way better.
Yeah, Tyler says it's way better too.
But okay.
But I agree with what James said.
Yeah, so he agrees with both of us. Essentially, he's just right down the middle.
Now,
I think he likes it better because, like, you have a hard time sometimes, Tyler, with higher proof stuff, right? Yeah. And you haven't drank a ton of whiskey, so yeah, I can get if you're new to whiskey and it's not something that you've had a whole lot of, or honestly, like if you just want to chill by the pool, like I get it.
Yeah,
I do.
So
I won't say it's a good drinking experience, but I get it.
So that was going to be my second point, is that in Florida, we spend a lot of the year it being very hot here. And I don't really want to drink something room temperature when it's hot out. And I don't always feel like making a cocktail either. Now, even an old fashioned is pretty easy to make, but if you don't have a lemon or something to put a twist in there, or you're out of cherries or simple syrup or whatever, like even those couple of ingredients you may not always have. Taking a very affordable bourbon and putting it on ice, this is 1,000 times more refreshing than just drinking the bourbon by itself.
What about like a highball though? Where you're just adding like a cold soda water to it. Like
I don't keep cold soda water stocked.
I do.
Okay.
Because I like cocktails. Yeah. But again, to me, that's a little bit better, right? Because I can control the problem with adding ice to it.
We'll do that. We're going to do a cocktail episode. So
okay. The problem with adding ice to it is it continually gets more and more diluted.
Well, that's why you just drink really fast, and you just
pound it.
You just get slammed
like right away,
dude. I get so drunk when I drink bourbon on ice because it goes down way too easy.
If I'm gonna get hammered though, I want to taste what I was getting hammered on. Like this is just, I get what you're saying though, but it's just watery bourbon.
Okay,
but I don't know that it improves it. It changes it.
I think it improves a cheap bourbon tremendously, in my opinion.
Just because it takes away the flavor.
The bad flavor.
Yes, it does.
Not that Four Roses is bad, but it has rough edges. I'm beyond just drinking Four Roses by itself. It's a little too simplistic and has too many flaws.
No, I would agree. I think there's some other ones out there that are like standard shelf offerings that are better. I don't know about it at this price point. It's kind of hard to beat, $15 to $20.
Yeah.
But
see,
yeah,
I was
get
able
what
to
you're
just
saying.
drink a whole shot in like 2 minutes instead of
Because it's hydrating.
Yeah.
It is refreshing. Like
And
there's something about it that's refreshing.
See, and that's what I'm saying. It's refreshing. All right. So now let's try with the 104 proof. So this should alleviate some of your concerns of it tasting like water right away.
It should.
Because it's not going to get watered down as fast. And it's a more flavorful product in the first place. So it should hold up a little bit better.
Now, this is non-chill filtered, so we'll see if we get any cloudiness out of this as it sits there a little bit longer.
Although it's hard to tell because your glass gets all covered in condensation.
I have to admit, this is tasty.
Is it?
I'm really mad at myself, but I actually kind of like this.
So,
damn it.
Yeah. All right. So this is what I was going to say when we started this is typically when I drink whiskey on ice, I grab something 100 proof. That's the Wild Turkey 101. Affordable. I think we should just rename this Wild Turkey 101 podcast.
Because that's when we talk a lot about it.
Yeah. Or Old Grandad 114 is another
Taylor Lawrence pick.
Yeah, that's another good culprit for drinking on ice.
If you like rye, there's a lot of good bottled and bond level rye, like Rittenhouse rye, I think is what 100 proof.
$30-something.
Yeah, that's a good option.
So I think there's a significant difference between an 80 proof and a 100 proof whiskey on ice.
Absolutely, yeah.
The 100 proof whiskey does not immediately taste watered down. I mean, it tastes watered down relative to it being neat, but it doesn't taste like whiskey flavored water right away.
And a lot of, even after it sits there for a while, more of the flavor remains. It changes. Like to me, this became a little bit more caramely. Mm-hmm. It became a little sweeter. Some of that spice that you get pulls back just a tad, which again, that's appealing to some people if you don't like ryes or you don't like the kind of spicy, bitey notes of a whiskey. But enough flavor remains because of that higher proof that it's actually enjoyable. I will say too, I think the non-chill filtered plays a role in it because it still seems like it's a coating mouthfeel at times compared to, something that's already been watered way down and then it's chill filtered.
I agree. Now,
I'm surprised though. I like it more than I thought I would. I will say this though, if your point is to explore the whiskey, like if you want to sit down and you want to get the flavor profiles of it and you want to do kind of a complex tasting of it, this is not what you want to do. This is just for pure enjoyment. Mm-hmm. Like for sitting down, drinking a glass of whiskey while you're watching a TV show or while you're by the pool or while you're doing work or whatever it is, while you're doing a push-up, whatever it is that you're doing, it does make it more approachable. There's absolutely no question.
Okay, I have a question.
Uh-oh. Tyler has a question.
So, someone wanted to just bottle inside of a fridge.
Oh, so that's a good question. So we get that a lot too on the groups. What if you just want to stick your bottle in the freezer? Does that help?
So people do this with vodka a lot. They keep their vodka in the freezer or
especially
white rum.
Their crappy flavored vodkas, like marshmallow vodka in the freezer is probably awesome.
Yeah. In theory, it would chill it without diluting it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that would probably be better than Whiskey Stones, but I don't know. I've never been tempted to do that with my whiskey, so I've never tried it.
I mean, it's going to mute the flavors, which is one of the goals of ice, but it's not
watered down,
right? But it's not going to add anything to the whiskey itself, like you get with the ice. So again, I would ask, what is your goal? Like, is it the proof that's bothering you? If it's the proof that's bothering you, chilling it down is probably going to make it a little bit more approachable. If you want to explore it and you want to get different flavors out of it, it's probably not going to work because you're not adding water to it. But I will say this. One of the cool things about putting something in the freezer and then bringing it out is it warms up over time. So you can see how the flavor changes as the spirit warms, which is not what's going to happen when you put ice in it, right? When you put ice in it and it sits, it just gets worse, in my opinion, because it waters down. In some ways, it gets better, and it lets you warm your palate up to the increasing complexity of it. So when you first try it, it's very muted, but then you sort of, your palate builds as the warmth comes into the whiskey and it releases more flavor. So it sort of lets your palate follow the journey of the whiskey as it warms up.
Yeah. Now,
but it also can taste like freezer. So I don't recommend keeping it in there very long.
So
put it in, pull it out.
That's what I was going to say is, in theory, I feel like, and this comes up when people talk about how to store your whiskey and for long periods of time and keep it good. In theory, heat and cold should not damage your whiskey, because when it's sitting in the barrel, it's in a warehouse.
It's going through tons of fluctuations
of seasons. It snows in Kentucky. It also gets to 130 degrees in those rick houses. Like, at least I think it snows in Kentucky.
It definitely snows.
I'm pretty sure it does.
Yeah,
I've seen pictures of snow at the distillery. So,
right.
So the whiskey has already been at freezing temperatures and well above any temperature it's going to see in your house, and it's fine. The bigger issue with like taking a bottle of whiskey and tossing it in the freezer and leaving it would be your freezer is dry. And so it's going to increase the evaporation, and it's going to dry out your cork, which means it's going to reduce the seal on your bottle. I was going to say
the cork is the big issue you have to worry about. You're going to make your cork brittle if you're just continually expanding it, contracting it, and drying it out.
So I think it could be worth sticking a bottle in there for a couple hours to just chill it and see if you like that experience. But
don't keep it there.
But personally, I've never done it with a bottle of whiskey. I've done it with vodka before, and I didn't think it was really worth it taking up room in my freezer versus just having it in a cupboard.
Where it could be like meat.
Yeah.
You could have like cow up there. So why would you spend all that cow room with whiskey? Like, the whiskey's good on the shelf. Cow is not good on the shelf. So keep them where they belong.
All right, so I've got here's my philosophical question of the week. That we need a segment. We were supposed to be doing segments in season 2, like news.
That sort of went away.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
we're gonna implement it from here on out. We're doing segments officially. I'm announcing it. Here's my segment of the week: philosophical ponderings of Paul.
Oh no, Jesus, this is gonna be great. All right, go for it. What is it?
If we call it, chicken when it's been butchered and everything. I can already
tell we're taking a drastic left turn.
It's called chicken.
Yeah.
Why is pork not called pig and beef not called cow? Because you just called it cow, and I've never heard anyone say that before. So it just made me realize, why do we call it beef or steak or whatever? Instead,
I just like to remind people of what it actually is.
Right. But everything for chicken is just called chicken breast, chicken tenderloin. It's not called cow sirloin, cow fillet, cow.
It's called ground beef.
Right.
Probably
why?
Because maybe ground cow sounds bad.
I know.
Compared to ground turkey or ground chicken. Cows are cute. Pigs are cute. So nobody's ever called a chicken or a turkey cute. Always make sure I say pig and cow, because that's what it is.
You got to educate.
I'm educating. All right. We've gotten off a little bit.
Anyway, this has been Whiskey Uncut. Tyler rolled the outro a little early, but it's fine. It's all good. He's not going to have him restart it.
This is like the Grammys when they start to play the music and pull you off the stage.
So I'm just going to keep talking until the music stops. Cheers, guys. Drink more whiskey.
Cheers.